Is it time to dump your Starbucks or fill up your cup? Welcome to this Valuation Masterclass case study. My name is Andrew Stotz. First question, what the heck has happened to Starbucks? This chart shows us that the share price collapsed. Now, this is a chart I got from Yahoo Finance, and we can see that the share price right now is about 73.11. And what's happened is the share price over the past 5 days, it collapsed on the 1st of May, 2024, and then it's basically stayed flat. So what the heck should we do? Is it time to dump your Starbucks or fill up your cup? First, let's get into the company's background before we answer that question. It began as a coffee bean company and evolved, of course, into a global coffee icon. The American multinational company was founded by Jerry Baldwin, Zev Zeal, and Gordon Boker in 1971. They were teachers and a writer who also loved coffee. And at the time, they only sold coffee beans and coffee making equipment. Then Howard Schultz came along and joined in 1982 and transformed it into the global brand that it is. He's credited with popularizing the concept of the third place, a comfortable social gathering spot outside of home and work, which I don't know about you, but I love sometimes to go to a nice third place and sit down and get my brain together about what I want to do. So the third place concept is great. Now, I'm not drinking Starbucks. In fact, I'm drinking Coffee Works right now. So Schultz stepped down as CEO in 2000, but returned in 2008 to guide Starbucks through the global financial crisis. He finally stepped down in 2022, but he still owns about 2% of the company. Now, you're going to meet the new CEO and make your judgment about whether Howard Schultz needs to come back. Some people think so. Now, the number of company-owned and company-operated and licensed store is roughly the same, but they're getting 82% of revenue from the company-operated, and licensed they're getting about 13%. So out of 38,000 stores, another 5% of revenue comes from other items. Let's look at the distribution across the world. 43% of revenue from the United States, 4% from Canada, 3% from the UK, and 18% from China. So China is a major contributor, and 5% from Japan. The remainder are from other locations. Now, the beverage segment is really the champion for revenue at 74%. Makes me want to have another sip. Have you had your coffee for the day, or a cup of tea, or water? What did you have? I always have an espresso after lunch. Then there's food, which is 22%. That looks pretty juicy. And then there's other items. So Starbucks succeeded in the online expansion that it did. Around 26% of sales come from the mobile app alone. Customers like the idea of order pay and skip the line, and they managed to guide their customers to use the app by offering gift cards and free drinks. Personally, what I don't like about the app stuff for all of these different stores is that, it really becomes much less personal. You could have 20 people in front of you that are all coming from online. And it just also, that the very less people, I think, that are coming into a shop that does that. But let's look at the latest news. In fact, there's a lot of news on the last recent period of time, whether it's things related to China or other places or the Middle East. Starbucks is definitely being hit by a lot of news that's negative. Let's look at the quarterly results. So here you can see the revenue is the top line, fiscal year, the second quarter of this fiscal year 2023. And here we can see the second quarter of fiscal year 2024. And what we can see is that when we look at the EPS, I like to look at the recurring EPS down here. That recurring EPS, it was 0.69 right here, which was 14.3% year-on-year down and 24% Q-on-Q down. So it was a brutal hit. The 6 month of 2024 result was about 53% of the forecast that I've made of EPS. Now remember, this is not a recommendation. This is a case study. Starbucks had its worst day of trading since June of 2022. In fact, Starbucks shares dropped nearly 16% on the 1st of May 2024. Its CEO and CFO claim the decline in revenue was due to occasional customers, weak spending, conflict in the Middle East, and a higher promotional environment in China. But I think the thing that got me on my Twitter feed was watching Jim Cramer interview the new CEO. So I've got a short clip of that, and let's ask the question, with the action plans that the CEO is about to say going to help in the upcoming quarters? Let's see Jim Cramer. And I want you to answer the question, do you think that Jim Cramer missed his Starbucks coffee this morning? I think so.
Because I've seen in a long time. Joining us now exclusively is Starbucks CEO, Laxman Narasimhan. Mr. Narasimhan, it's good to have you on the show, and I appreciate that you're coming on, despite the fact that the quarter was extremely weak.
Jim, it was a very tough quarter. Thank you for having me. There were three reasons for this. First, we saw unexpected pressures on our occasional customers, more intense than we expected, that impacted their visitation. Second, the choppiness of the recovery in China continued with a more intense price war than what we expected. And third, challenges of our business in the Middle East that impacted us not just in the Middle East, but also in other geographies.
Okay.
Clearly,
I understand. Now, what I'm trying to figure out, sir, is why did you not feel the need to pre-announce this shortfall, given the fact in the previous quarter, your CFO said that she felt that you could have a earnings per share growth in the range of 15 to 20%. This is a substantial decline from that. And given the fact that you said on the call that April did not end well, I'd like to know why you did not feel the need to come out and say our quarter is going to be substantially worse than expected at least 4 weeks ago.
I think, Jim, we've been working on action plans to address these headwinds. And so what we wanted to come back with was not just the announcement, but also the action plans that we have in place, which, by the way, are not business as usual.
So he's talking about the action plans they've got to try to recover the revenue. But the question is, should you dump your Starbucks shares or should you buy more? Now, it's also interesting that Jim Cramer's first question is about the, why didn't you tell us about this earlier? Is that really a great question? I don't know. I don't think it is. I think, so what? If you told him about it earlier, the share price would still gone down. This is the concept of guiding the market. And you have to be very careful as a company that you can't go out and selectively guide the market either. So Starbucks continues to feel the effects of the Gaza war in boycotts. So Starbucks lowered its full year expected profits after a market drop off in customer traffic in the Middle East. The ongoing boycott for its perceived support of Israel is one of the reasons for that. 2,000 jobs have been cut in some of the Middle East franchises. Now I'm going to show you a video from one of the news sources in the Middle East. And of course, you have to be an analyst and judge the value of this information. Is it just staged? Was it done in the mornings when the places are already empty, or maybe at the end of the day? Or are they really stores empty in Qatar and across? Thanks to Doha News for that. So let's step back and look at the bigger picture. Come on, don't get too negative. Starbucks was founded in 1971. It's got 380,000 employees and about $36 billion in revenue. Is it really going to be hit by one quarter? Starbucks, the main products, of course, are coffee beverages, Frappuccino, and then reserve stores. The competitive advantage, well, what is it? It's through brand loyalty, premium coffee experience, and global expansion. So how do they achieve this? Well, by creating a unique coffeehouse atmosphere and focusing on high quality beans, except the espresso, I would say. That's pretty harsh. But providing personalized customer experiences and building a strong global presence through franchising and company-owned stores. But the real question is, does that strategy lead to a competitive advantage? Well, I want to ask the question, is the company financially world-class? I use my world-class benchmarking scorecard to measure if a company has a competitive advantage. I developed this scorecard 10 years ago, and here's how we construct it. My team gathers the yearly and quarterly financial data of 26,000 companies worldwide. We then calculate each company's profitable growth score, which is a composite measure of both profitability and growth. So is the company financially world-class? Well, after that, we rank the company relative to sector peers of a similar size. And a decile ranking of a 1 or 2 is financially world-class, while 10 is the worst. Now, we assess the company's performance over the prior 4 years and the past 12 months. And here's what we can see. When compared against 920 large consumer discretionary companies worldwide, Starbucks is definitely financially world-class. Its competitive strategy has led to a competitive advantage. Well done. But, it could take a hit right now. So let's look at the valuation and understand a bit more. After the news came out, we went through the financials and basically looked at the free cash flow here and knocked things down for 2024, as you can see, from free cash flow of 5,723 to 3,670. That's a massive reduction. That's a 36% reduction in free cash flow. So I think we've been, somewhat conservative on that. And we've used a discount rate of 13.5%, which I would argue is even a little bit high. And what we can see is that the value of Starbucks right now is about 82 in value for about a $74 price. In other words, it seems attractive. In fact, this may be providing us an opportunity if the share price even went further down to 70 to 65. I think that could be a very, very attractive point. Now, I use my FBMR methodology to determine the attractiveness of the company. FBMR stands for fundamentals, valuation, momentum, and risk. Let's look at the simplified scorecard, and here we can see Starbucks, and we can see that the market cap is about 84 billion US dollars. The ROA is about 14, and I forecasted that ROA is going to come down considerably. PE is about 21 times, and what we can see is the beta is about 0.7, so it generally is a low risk. That ranks it using this data. Now, keep in mind, this is not necessarily up to date on every item that's just come out on a quarterly basis, but it was ranked 50 out of 127 companies in my scorecard here. And therefore, I would say that the stock actually looks kind of attractive. Now, you can click the link in the description to get this report, the full report, and this simplified FBMR scorecard for 127 companies. So make sure you do that. But let's end with the question. Is it time to dump your Starbucks or fill up your cup? I would say fill up your cup. What would you say?